everyone, it's Dave from Arachnids. So, we have a little controversial topic going on right now in the tarantula community. And I say tarantula community, that means the entirety of the tarantula online, people that discuss things, not our actual group, the tarantula community. I know that there's been some other controversial topics that have been brought up. Tarantula Cat did some in her last video, so we're going to touch on something different. And this is Amac boxes. Okay, anybody that has a container store anywhere near them knows what Amac boxes are. These are these little plastic boxes that, the company makes these, and different places buy them and use them for certain things. You could put candy in them and then sell them, you know, on the shelves, or cotton balls or Q-tips, anything of that nature. They have a very wide range of use. But in our hobby, they're used as tarantula enclosures. So there was a problem with a specific vendor that has a 30-day guarantee with a spiderling and the actual box that it comes in. And the issue was the spider had passed away before the 30-day guarantee went off, and the guarantee I think covered apparently everything up to that point, but the discussion was that they didn't think that flipping these boxes upside down like this were ideal. And that was a contributing factor to the sling's death. Now, the sling was a Carabiner versicolor. We all know that they can be very tricky to keep. And we also have to keep in mind that not every single spiderling in an egg sac is supposed to survive. It just isn't going to happen. So no matter what anybody tells you, no vendor can guarantee that their tarantulas are going to survive 30 days, 90 days, 120 days, a year. You could raise a tarantula from a small sling and then it pass away as a 2-inch juvenile with no issues whatsoever. It's just the way it happens. But what had happened is, when the box comes in, apparently there's ventilation holes in here, or right in this area. And the discussion was that there was not enough air exchange when you do it this way, because now the holes are down lower. So what I wanted to show you is that that's not necessarily true. It could be a theory. I'm not dispelling anybody's theories, and I'm not dispelling anything that people are saying, you know, the vendor themselves, whether they were in the wrong or the right. I just want everybody to understand that you can absolutely 100% flip these upside down and use them for your Avicularia species. That is probably, or Aviculariinae, I should say, probably the only subfamily that I would possibly use them upside down for. So Carabiner, Avicularia, Antilenus, what else do we have? I'm missing a big one. I don't know which one I'm missing. Iberipora. The tarantulas generally migrate to the top of the enclosure, and this generally happens from sling size all the way up. So if here's what I'm gonna say: if the holes are here, okay, or if the holes are here, if the sling goes down here and decides it's going to live down there, how is that air exchange any different? It's not. So I want to show you what I did with the female Avicularia that I have. The species is at the moment unknown. We're going to wait for another molt before we decide to do it. Now, here she is. Okay, so the second discussion was on feeding and the accessibility to water. So if you put a water dish down here, they're saying that the accessibility to water isn't as good as if you put the water dish a little bit higher. Also, the foliage, the amount of foliage. Now that's going to vary from person to person, and if this vendor specifies that everything that comes in the kit has to be put in a certain manner to have that guarantee be honored, then I understand it. I don't know the guarantee. So again, I'm not bashing anybody. So please, when you find out who the vendor is, or the vendor themselves, or fans of the vendor, come to me here. I am not bashing them whatsoever. I'm trying to make it clear that you can absolutely 100% raise Avicularia from sling size up in an Amac box upside down. Now note, I added holes. Now apparently with their guarantee you can't alter their enclosure at all. Again, I don't know that for a fact. It's just what I've heard. So here we have my avicularia. This is a female. She's roughly 3 inches. And she's in a 7-inch tall Amac box. Now you note there is nothing from the top of the enclosure down. So how do you feed them? That's the big thing. It's impossible to feed these things this way. It's not good. Well, I'm telling you right now, if your avicularia is hungry, all you have to do is this. Take the enclosure off, flip the enclosure like this, and let me go get a mealworm and see what happens. Now note, she didn't go anywhere. She's not bolting, she's not taking off, and oh, now I gotta find tongs. The reason for that is that she's quite comfortable. There's no reason for her to go anywhere. So I know people are saying, oh, you know, they're going to take off if you do it that way. As you can see, she's not. So we're going to see if she's hungry at all. Look at that. See how I fed that tarantula? Absolutely 100% without ease, or with ease, I'm sorry, without destroying any webbing that she would have if you flipped it the other way. So all we need to do now is turn her back around and put the enclosure back together again. So if you did this, we'll move her out of the way. If you did this with this enclosure in this aspect, and the tarantula decided I'm going to web all the way up in here on the lid, every time I lift this lid off, I would be wrecking their webbing, which in turn will make them either want to go straight down to the bottom or flee. So no, I don't believe the statement that you cannot do it this way. And that the statement of after 30 days you can do whatever you want to do, it's okay to flip it after that. I don't like that sentiment. So as you see, I put air holes down here and air holes all the way around the bottom. I did not put air holes in the top of the enclosure. As you'll see, there's no water in there right now, so I can tip it. I did not put air holes in the top of the enclosure, which I generally would for this species, for the simple fact of air circulation. Air will come in through these holes, air will come in through these holes, and with the pressure of the air, it should either expel back out the holes or out of the top, which we would call the chimney effect. So again, please don't think that you cannot flip these boxes upside down and that it is impossible to feed or water this tarantula. It is absolutely not true. Okay, so I gave you the examples. I showed you what happens with an Amac. Now let's look at how I set them up with a fossorial species. This is a smaller Amac box. This is roughly about 4.5 inches tall. This is a Lyrionathus giannispositoi. And you could see I left the small part up top. The air circulation is here, and on the top it will circulate through and come out. Generally I will put them on top of the substrate level, but you never know with fossorials how much they're going to push up. So I did not do that with this species. As you can see, the whole entire bottom is filled with dirt and the webbing, and you flip the top off and there you go, you can feed your tarantula. It would make no sense to use the small one for a fossorial. That's just common sense. I think everybody knows that. Now here's another of the smaller Amac boxes. This is with a more of an arboreal type species. This is a Formicochilus arboreocola. Now it's still a sling. So when we look at these fossorial species or these arboreal species, we tend to think as they are older what they do. Okay, fossorial species dig. Your arboreal species generally live higher up off the ground. Now this one's still a sling. So if I were to put this upside down, you could see what this little guy did. It webbed all the way along the piece of cork bark and it's dug all the way down to the bottom. This is just experience and knowing how to set up the tarantula that you're working with. A lot of people have problems with this. A lot of people do this exact setup or this exact setup with Amac, and every time they got to go into there, they wreck it. Now, again, you could see how big this enclosure is. You could see this next size up. Now this next size up, this is a different type of Amac box. This is one that we got from, oh yeah, I can't think of the name, Dreamco Plastics out of Show in Buffalo. This is roughly about, it's probably 6 inches tall. Now, they put a vent hole in the very top. I added extra holes down the bottom and the sides, just for more air circulation. The tarantula that's going to be moving into this is, where are you? Right? No, that's not you. Where are you? It's, well, it's somewhere here. My son will pay his Cambridge eye sling. Oh, it's right in front of my face. This guy. Okay? Now I will set this up exactly like this. But here's the problem. You can see that the 50 gram vial that I have in is actually just a little bit taller than when I take this off. So what do I do? Kind of hard to figure out, right? No, not really. If we just put a piece of cork bark in there, the height of this, that's rounded, and they can go, and the Cambridge eye can go in the back, you only really have to worry about them bolting up and out right away, which a lot of times with Cambridge eye or Semmelpace, you have to worry about that anyway. So I have other boxes that are better for that purpose. These are also Amac boxes. These are also 7 inches tall. These are my assassin bugs. They're getting moved out. Not that I need the enclosure because I have a couple of these left over. We're going to move you back here. We're going to turn this light on too. Okay. Now you can see this lid is only that wide. So it's a lot better for any of your fossorial species or your arboreal species that don't go all the way up to the top and web. Now, here's a perfect example. No, it should move down. Of what I mean. So this one, I set up for an Avicularia marinae with the short side up and all the stuff down the bottom. Where do you think that spider was just right now? The spider was up at the very top in the corner. You can see it did the webbing here, but that's where it molted. So it's pretty much destroyed that whole entire area. And here's the cork bark for it. See, absolutely no webbing. If I were to put more plants and stuff up in this area, that spider would come up and it would web up in that area. And I'm going to show you what I mean. So this is my other Avicularia marinae, and you can see it's in the box with the short lid, and you can see exactly what it did. Now say that the cover was this high, that's where you took it off. What would happen every time that you did this? You would destroy it. So my advice to you is to rationalize how you need to get in and out of the enclosure. Please don't let anybody tell you how to set up your enclosure, or what is the best way to do it, whether it's small side up or large side up. Either way, it's a perfectly acceptable way. And I showed you how easy it is to feed them, Avicularia especially. You know, my Iridopelma hieristum, which would be in that Aviculariinae subfamily, I would never do that with. I would never do an enclosure where half of it comes apart, you know, like these. Only because it spends time up top and down underneath, and they're so fast and so irritable that you don't know what's going to happen. So here's another enclosure that's set up for an arboreal species. There he is right there. He's actually out. This is, as you could probably guess, the Pseudoclamaris gigas, the orange tree spider. It's absolute insane spider. Constantly likes to run around its enclosure. Again, it has the small lid and just has cork bark in there. No plants this time, because the last couple that I had, I put plants in, they didn't survive. This guy seems to be doing okay, but again, he came in at this size, so he was already well started. So again, please don't think for a second that is absolutely mandatory because a certain vendor, no matter what the vendor is, tells you that the spider died for this particular reason. They have no idea. Okay, nobody would have any idea. It could have just been a freak thing. It could have been something that happened in a molt. It could have been a fall. It could have been a myriad of things. Could have been too humid and stagnant air? Absolutely. It could have been too dry? Absolutely. Was the spider not drinking? We don't know. But this goes hand in hand with that whole entire aspect of, you know, understanding how to keep them the best way that is possible for you in your atmosphere, in your region, It is going to vary. And again, for this spider right here, I would never use a box like this. I just wouldn't do it because there's just too much space coming off when I open the lid. It just would not be fruitful for me, and that spider is constantly going crazy, so I'd be worried about it taking off. So I hope this helps people with these Amac boxes. Again, ventilation, you can see in this one, ventilation up top. You had the ventilation here at the very, very top, and ventilation down here, which was perfect for any type of arboreal species. You'll get cross ventilation going through, and you will have an escape route for ventilation coming out. The atmospheric pressure inside the plastic, I am not a physicist, so physics, I like to say I understand them, but I really don't. But the whole process of thinking that air's coming in this way and this way, so the two pressures are coming in, where's it going to want to go out? Up. If there's a vent area to release pressure, that's where it's going to go. So again, no disrespect to any vendor whatsoever. It's why I didn't mention them. I've purchased stuff from them. I've not really had problems at all with any of the stuff that's ever come in. And if I did, they took care of it right away. But this video is specifically for people using these Amac boxes for Avicularia species. Now, we'll go back one more thing with this Avicularia. You note that where the cork bark ends is right at the base of where this is, where the top or the bottom edge of this is. So I fed this one a cockroach the last time. Now, I watched the cockroach run around the bottom for a little while, and I said, oh man, that's going to suck trying to get that cockroach up there, because the red runners can't get up the glass. So what I did is actually this piece of, you can see that sphagnum moss there was wrapped around and was hanging down, and I tipped the enclosure over a little bit. The roach caught hold of that, climbed right up. As soon as it got on the leaf, the spider caught the roach right away. So it's just basically just using your head a little bit and doing the best thing that you possibly can to make it more comfortable for the spider in the long run. Again, you could also, if you think about it, you see how this piece ends right there. You could also glue a piece down the bottom that's glued to the very bottom of this enclosure that goes up, but touches that at the very bottom. That way a roach can climb up to that area to get up to where the tarantula is. So if you have any questions or comments down below, I'll be happy to address all those comments. I'm sure there'll be some backlash, because I know that there are people that are very loyal to this certain vendor. Again, I didn't mean it as a hit to them. It just didn't look nice how they handled it in the beginning, plastering it on their page and basically saying that it was the keeper's fault. Of course, it's going to make the keeper feel bad in the beginning, thinking that they did something wrong. And now a lot of people that have them set up that way, that came in from this vendor, or there's other vendors that have these. Don't just stick it on one. There's other vendors that sell these. You know, that it's stuck on that, and the people are looking at that saying, oh my God, my spider's going to die now because I have it the wrong way. It is not the wrong way. So thanks again for watching. I'm going to actually add this to a couple different groups. I generally don't do that. I don't like to advertise my videos. I feel if people want to come and watch, they'll come and watch. It's probably one of my downfalls, but yeah, Avicularia, Amac boxes, there is absolutely no reason that you can't keep them like I do. See you guys later, and happy keeping.